Lieutenant Governor Pamela Evette, thank you so much. And let's begin your 2 minutes. Tell everybody here why you think that you would be the best person to serve as governor of South Carolina.
Well, Jane, thank you so much for coming out. It's always a pleasure to see you and see your face on WYFF every day. And just for everybody, I'm going to back up 20 years ago today, Jane went through open heart surgery. And isn't it a blessing from God? Look how amazing she looks.
That's a blessing. Thank you for that. Such a blessing.
But hello, everybody. I'm Pamela Evette. I'm your 93rd Lieutenant Governor of the great state of South Carolina. I'm the first female Republican Lieutenant Governor our state has ever had. And I'm the first Lieutenant Governor ever elected with a governor. And it's been an amazing, this is my 8th year working alongside Governor McMaster. I am a conservative businesswoman. I'm a woman of faith. I'm a mother of 3, all great descriptions. I love what I do. And it was the part of being the first Lieutenant Governor ever elected with a governor. You know, when the governor asked me to come down and he asked me to run with him, I said to him, why me? I was never in political office and I wasn't even my high school class president. And he said, because I want somebody who has signed the front of paychecks. I want somebody who has hired people. I want somebody who had to be successful, who had to make hard decisions. And I want somebody to travel around the state and help me continue to grow South Carolina. And to me, that I was sold because that was what I wanted. You know, when Donald Trump, I remember sitting in my office watching him come down that golden escalator. And I said to my husband, I said, David, this is going to be my guy. And he said, why? What do you know about him? And I said, nothing. But I know he's a developer. But what really got me, he was a businessman. And I did not want another career politician. I wanted somebody that knew what we had to fight every day with horrible regulations. I saw it every day in business, small businesses getting choked out because regulations were so burdensome and so costly. And just all on government overreach. And so he was my guy. I was with him before it ever meant anything that I was supporting him. And I was proud to support him ever since. And I think he's done a great job. Do you all agree that President Trump has done a great job for our country? I was proud to stand with him before I was Lieutenant Governor. I was proud to stand with him in January 23 when nobody else was standing with him. There was just a few of us down in Columbia on that Saturday when he came down. But in this race, I'm the only candidate for governor that stood with the president in January 23 when he came here to South Carolina when there were no polls.
Time for questions.
Perfect.
Also, I was supposed to remind everyone, I remembered right as I was walking, take a look at your phone. You are allowed to grab your phone right now. My husband wears hearing aids, so he'll be grabbing his phone some to adjust the hearing aids. But if you would, grab your phones right now, make sure they're on silent. Okay, 1 minute. And many of the things that, these questions are from the Upstate Republican women in the 4th Congressional District, and they said, take a look at them, and what do you think? And I said, I think they're fabulous. So straight from the group. You have executive business experience, which is what you just spoke about, but not a voting role in the legislature. How would that shape your first 100 days as governor? In 1 minute.
1 minute. Oh, I don't know having a voting role, not having a voting role really matters in the executive branch, right? I've worked alongside with the governor. I did what I did in business. I made relationships, and I went to the General Assembly, a lot of them which are here today. Thank you all for what you do. But made friendships, talked about what was important to the governor and I, and what was important to them, and how do we get things done for the people of South Carolina. And our record has been really strong. We've been able to get a lot of things done. That's what I would do. What I would do in my first 100 days would be to eliminate state income tax. That's what, as I travel around the state, thank you. I think everybody should clap because you want to keep your own hard-earned money at home so you can spend it better than we can. And then getting rid of those regulations. You know, I saw it, my friend Allie's here. She was talking to me about her son who is breaking out, becoming a builder, and he could barely get to the start line because of all the regulations and all the permitting and all the things that were costing him so much money. So in my first 100 days, that's exactly what I would do. Do what I did in business, make things better.
South Carolina has seen strong job growth, but many families say that wages have not kept pace. What is one policy that you would champion to raise incomes without driving jobs out of the state?
So, I think education is a big deal. We have the best technical college system in the world, and I can say that because I've been to Germany, and I thought I would learn something there, and what I learned is that we far exceed what they do. And education is the key to good wages. Making sure that we are educating our K through 12 for the future, for the jobs that are coming for the future, making sure that we're attracting industry. We were all at the SC Bio conference in Charleston last week. That life science world is an amazing world with incredible opportunities, great paying jobs. How do we now diversify and bring some of that here, that research work? I mean, we already lead the world in advanced manufacturing, but it's getting our young people educated up and bringing in those high-paying jobs.
As a lieutenant governor, the role is often ceremonial. You did mention, though, that you're the first to run on the ticket with the governor. So that may have changed what that role looked like for the first time. But what specific accomplishments should voters point to as evidence that you're now ready to lead as governor?
So it's, you're right. When the General Assembly created this new position, they left a lot of it up to the governor to say, like, how would you use your lieutenant governor? And I have worked hand in glove with the governor. I started the YES initiative, the Empowering Youth Initiative, worked with our Department of Workforce, Employment and Workforce, created a huge website, really focusing on getting young people working again. Because that's what businesses across South Carolina were talking about, is that they were getting these well-educated children, but they didn't have soft skills. They didn't understand fiscal responsibility. And so when I saw that gap, the governor said, run with it. Also, I know we have a lot of pro-life people that are in this room. I sat down with Children's Trust, them looking for state dollars to keep going the mom and nurse partnership program, so that moms that wanted to keep their babies had resources. I went to the General Assembly, and thank you so much to my friends in the General Assembly, got them the money they needed so that moms here in South Carolina that wanted to keep their babies didn't have any barriers. That's the plus of making friends and working in the General Assembly with them.
How would you balance recruiting large out-of-state employers with supporting those small local businesses that feel overlooked? You've already mentioned those small businesses. How do you do that balance?
Well, we've been balancing it pretty well, Jane. 99.4% of all businesses here in South Carolina are small businesses. And what I have found, and I've traveled the state, I travel the state all the time. Since I announced for governor, I promised I'd hit all 46 counties. I announced in July, on December 16th, I hit all 46 counties. And what I find is most small businesses, one, need a workforce, right? And that's what I've tried to tackle with my YES initiative, getting them a place to put their job offerings and driving a workforce to it. But the big part is letting them know the opportunities that we have out there. Most of the time I have found that people who were really upset about something, we had a fix for that. It's just they didn't know. So what we have to do is get really good at selling ourselves and having a reach out, working with Commerce to make sure small businesses feel like they are as invited in as our big businesses. Because let's face it, I have met so many small business owners that would have never had the opportunities that they have had a big business not come in. I can tell you stories over and over about the opportunities that we have, but it is small business that's the backbone of not just our state, but our nation.
And finally, if your own party's leadership resists one of your priorities, if you were governor, how would you move it forward without creating gridlock?
Well, I think you have to be able to sell yourself, right? In business, we have to sell ourselves all the time. In business, you're looking for clients. Well, in government, you're all my clients, right? And so I've always thought it was best to get consensus from the people who vote everybody in office. And I tell people that all the time, when they say, why can't we get this done? It's like, have you reached out to your elected officials? Have you talked to them? That's how you get it done. I always believe that I was elected to do your will, not my own. And that's why I've spent so much time over these last 8 years everywhere, talking to everybody, That 46 county tour was very deliberate, and I wanted to hear from just the everyday people, not there for an event because something great was happening, but come and tell me what you have to think. And that's how you get things done. And I think working alongside and hearing what the people in the General Assembly have to say, they want to hear from you. You vote them in office. You're the reason they're there. They need to hear in a very nice way, like you said. Let's not be mean to our elected officials, but they want to hear what you're thinking before it becomes a problem. So reach out to them and have open dialogue. That's what I plan to do. Open dialogue helps get a lot of things done. Because you know what they say? You can go fast if you go alone, but you can go far if you go with everyone.
Pamela Evette. You are now invited for a 2-minute closing statement, and I kind of softly invite each one of the candidates to say, keeping in mind that that undecided vote is still so large, why do you want to be governor? But anything you want to tell us for 2 minutes? And good for you. Thank you for keeping an eye on the.
I know I've been trying to watch, but I got this light
Has
right
she been
here.
well behaved? Has she been well behaved with the time? Okay, very good. She's setting the standard. Yeah.
I try to be a rule follower. I really do. Well, I want to thank you all so much for coming out, and thank you for putting this on. These things are never easy, right? And we had a snowstorm that stopped it the first time, which is really weird here. But thank you all for coming out, and June 9th is coming quickly. And there's a lot of people in this race. You've heard me say time and time again that I have believed in the America First policies. That's why I've stood with President Trump forever. But I have been on the executive branch in the private sector. I started a business from an office in my house, and I grew it into a national company. And I've sat at the right hand of the governor now for the 8th year. I was so proud to get the governor's endorsement. But I have the resume to do this job. And on day one, I can step into office and keep South Carolina moving forward. And I think that's really important because we have a lot of great things happening. We have a state that's growing. I think we live in the best state to live, work, and raise your family. But I also believe that our best days are yet ahead of us. And that will only happen with good, solid leadership. So if I haven't earned your vote, I hope to by June 9th. It's been an honor to serve you as your lieutenant governor. It'd be an even greater honor to serve you as your next governor. Thank you all so much. And Jane, thank you for always being a bright spot on Channel 4 every time we tune in.
Thank you so
all.
much. See, I keep telling them in the newsroom, politics is fun. And they're like, I'm like, you just aren't paying enough attention. Today is fun, isn't this? We're blessed. Let's welcome to the stage now from Spartanburg County, State Senator Josh Kimbrell.
I love that. Well, I like hugging you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm taking this off this thing though. You gotta. I'm a hold it in the hand kind of guy. Sorry.
What are you, a radio guy?
Yeah, I was. You know. Sorry, Alan and Ralph. I'm gonna take it off for a second, okay?
I'll make sure he puts it back.
I'll put
This
it
isn't
back.
a
I'll
union
put it
room
back.
though, so we'll have to make sure somebody comes in and puts it back the right way.
Sure, I'll put it back.
Nice to see you.
good
Thank
to
you
see
so much for
Every
your time
time I
today.
see your Facebook post and what you and Mario make for dinner, I'm kind of jealous.
I have a husband who could maybe rival what's on your plates in front of you, although this is pretty delicious too. Thank you so much, Poinsett Club Kitchen. Awesome. 2 minutes. Tell us why you want to do this and what separates you from the pack.
Well, I think all four of us could probably say we were dropped on our heads as kids. It might be why we want to do it. In all seriousness, South Carolina is a state that is legislatively dominant. We know that. I mean, it is. I mean, it's a legislatively dominant state. And anybody that's going to serve as governor needs to understand how to work that relationship. And if you look at what's happened since 2020, we've seen pretty substantial conservative achievements in the state. More needs to be done. We've cut taxes on income taxes the first time in history. The biggest tax cut ever was 2 years ago. The Senate just voted unanimously. We don't do anything unanimously. We did this week in tripling the homestead exemption, which is a bill I sponsored with Senator Harvey Peeler and the President of the Senate, Alexander, to reduce your property taxes, because everyone wants to get rid of income taxes. All of us are going to say that. I'm for it. I introduced a bill to go to zero income taxes in 2021. But at the end of the day, I think more people are ticked off about property taxes even than income taxes. So we're trying to get rid of, lower those income taxes, and eventually get rid of them completely. But you've got to learn how to work with the legislature. And the reality is, There's two approaches. You can just go scorched earth. I worked in the Sanford administration back in 2005. That was before Argentina. Okay, want to point that out? That was before the Argentina trip. But you've got one or two approaches. You can go to war with the legislature, like maybe Governor Sanford did, or you can say, just send it to me, I'll sign it, like we've seen more recently. Somewhere in between is the happy spot, right? You've got to be the quarterback, call the plays, try to get consensus, and pass some of these really significant reforms. The last 2 years, we've seen significant reform in South Carolina. More needs to be done, but if you don't work the legislature, you can't do that.
Very good. All right, first question, Senator Kimbrell. You've worked inside the State House on complex policy issues. What is one law currently on the books that you helped shape and would now change as governor?
Well, that's easy. I mean, I can say I've worked very hard on the income tax package, and the biggest cut 2 years ago, 3 years ago, was the result when Harvey Peeler came in, our most conservative chairman of the Senate Finance Committee we've ever had. He and I are neighboring districts in the Senate. I'm Spartanburg County. He's got part of Spartanburg, part of Cherokee. We had a $2 billion cut on income taxes, I'm really proud of that, happy about that. I was one of the primary sponsors of the heartbeat bill to bring the abortion rate down from, we're 80% down compared to where we were before heartbeat. We had to do that twice, not only because of the federal courts, but because of the state Supreme Court. And now we're working very hard on property tax reform. Those are three things I'm very proud of. I think those are huge positives for people of South Carolina. But I will say one vote I regret. I think it's important to admit when you're right or wrong. One vote I would go back. I would not vote for Scout again. I think Scout's asking for more money right now. We'll talk more about that in income taxes, but I will not vote for another Scout project in South Carolina again, period.
All right, we good on time? Very good.
I was a radio guy. I'm watching her.
There you go. Okay, good. And I appreciate y'all doing that because I'm so interested in what you have to say. I'm not turning around. South Carolina faces growing energy demands from manufacturing and from population growth. What is your plan to keep energy affordable and reliable over the next decade?
Well, I mean, for starters, one of the things and I'm on Senate Judiciary Committee, so we've worked on a lot of energy issues. One of the things that's difficult there is you have a government-sponsored enterprise when it comes to energy. We're going to have to work to deregulate that, pull the government out of the business of running power. If you want the same government that runs the DMV to run your power company, does anybody want the same government that runs your DMV to run your power company? So I think eventually you have to deregulate it, roll it back, give more public-private options, more private choice. But I will say after Helene, we had some significant improvements. If you look at what happened in Spartanburg County, for example, Greenville, y'all are largely the same. During Helene, we had days and days of outages, more than a week of it in many cases. In Spartanburg County, we had 5,900 outages during that recent ice storm, and every one of those was restored within 24 hours.
Some voters want an outsider. Others say they want someone with government experience. Why is legislative experience, do you think, an advantage rather than a liability for a governor?
Look, anybody that gets elected, you're immediately the insider then. I mean, I wouldn't warn anybody here. Anybody that's in elected office, a lieutenant governor, attorney general, me, anybody, any House member here, you run as an outsider. The minute you take the oath of office, right, Senator Elliott, you're an insider, right? That's how it works. Look, you can accuse people of being part of the establishment or however you want to put it. The reality is, the question is, are you going to stand with the status quo or you try to disrupt the status quo? And this goes back to what I said in my opening answer with you. There's one or two ways to do this. You can go in and say, I'm going to burn the house down, I'm going to burn it all to the ground. Okay, good luck. You're not going to pass anything. You've got to work from the inside out. So there's a lot of good people in the legislature. I see a lot of them in the audience today who are reform-minded folks. You've got to be able to push your reform agenda. It's one thing to scream at the wind, pitch a fit, object to everything. I object sometimes when I need to, but you've got to be able to advance policy legislation. There is no substitute for victory, as General MacArthur said. And having legislative experience does not hurt because that's where most of the change is going to come from.
What is one regulatory burden that you would eliminate in your first year, and why that one?
Well, there won't be one. I mean, I'm on the subcommittee in the Judiciary Committee right now. We're studying the Small Business Regulatory Act. All of y'all should be for this. I've pushed for this for years. I'm glad we're finally doing it. That basically would say that every single regulation in South Carolina, there are 5,500 regulations in this state, okay? 5,500. There's 86,000 rules that come out of those 5,500 regulations. Nobody knows what's in that. Even the people enforcing it don't know what's in it. And so when you have 5,500 regulations, for example, if you get a pool installed, you have to have a payphone installed by the pool, just in case somebody falls in. Let me just say, if somebody installs a pool at your house right now, they're going to go put a quarter in the payphone. This isn't 1989. That's a dumb regulation, needs to go away. But we have regulations on the books that have been there since Truman was president. So we have a Small Business Regulatory Act right now to revisit every regulation, a 2-to-1 repeal. Every regulation that's proposed, we're going to repeal 2 of them. And every regulation needs to be revisited in 7 years under the current legislation. I'm trying to bring it to 5. There is no regulation that should last a lifetime, as Reagan used to say. There is nothing closer to eternal life this side of heaven than a government regulation.
If economic growth conflicts with environmental or community concerns, how would you decide where to draw that line?
I mean, look, none of us want to see South Carolina's resources plowed over. At the end of the day, we have a beautiful state in terms of our mountains, the Midlands, the coast. It's an amazing state. We really are blessed in that regard. And we've got to preserve it. But there's one thing between plowing over a bay or inlet or destroying a natural resource, and there's another thing, protecting some endangered gnat. Okay, we don't want to be California. I mean, California literally denied an entire set of regulations on a housing development near Sacramento because of an endangered gnat. Hell, I hope every gnat's endangered. That would be my preference. And so, I mean, my attitude would be, you've got to draw a common sense line here to where you can't slow down economic development. At the end of the day, we talk about preserving species or resources. Human beings are a natural resource. Can we all agree on that? We're on the planet too. So at the same time, while you're trying to preserve endangered species or protect rivers or streams or bays or lakes, all for that, there's a difference between being a conservationist and an environmental wacko, and we have to draw the line between not being environmental wackos.
I think the frogs would really love to continue
The frogs would
endangering
like
gnats.
it. Yeah, I'd like it.
Senator Josh Kimbrell?
Thank you.
That's the end of the first questions. And again, just for this next 2 minutes, take a look at just explaining to everybody why you would like to be governor and what you think you have that others don't.
I mean, look, at the end of the day, you've got to be able to advance an agenda. It's one thing to shout at the wind. It's another thing to actually govern and advance legislation. A lot of people run for office. We see that in the current environment where you run for office just to say, I'm against this, I'm against this, I'm against this. Sometimes you have to be for some things. And I defeated a 30-year Democratic incumbent. People didn't know there were any Democrats left in Spartanburg. There aren't now, except for one House member. We've defeated every senator from Spartanburg is now a Republican. And that's because I beat a 30-year incumbent. Because my predecessor ran largely saying, oh, I'm conservative on this or this, but you look at the voting record, it's not. So you asked a question earlier about voting records. You can compare voting records and see where somebody is. Are you a fiscal and social conservative? I'm both. I don't believe you can be one without being the other. I've said that my entire adult life. A strong culture supports a strong economy. A strong economy supports a strong culture. You've got to be both. You can't say I'm a social conservative who doesn't care about cutting taxes, and you can't talk about cutting taxes and regulations unless you believe in strong families, pro-life principles, and socially conservative principles. So my legislative record, look it up. The only vote I'm disappointed in is I wouldn't vote for Scout again. I'm not giving them any new money. But at the end of the day, if we can get rid of all these targeted tax packages, we can actually pay for the income tax cut. So I've seen it from the inside. You work from the inside out. You work with people you can. And there are a lot of conservative legislators in the state. The last 4 years, we've made enormous progress because we have a Republican majority in the Senate that's actually functional. It's not just a Republican in name-only Senate anymore. And I was a huge part of that, and I will continue to govern that way. My belief is you work with everybody you can, and 80%, a person's 80% my friend is not my enemy.
Okay. Josh Kimbrell, Senator Josh Kimbrell.
There we go. All right, Congressman, I fixed it for you, I think. There you go. Good to see you.
Thank
Always,
you.
thank you.
Representative Ralph Norman, 5th Congressional District of South Carolina. Always great to see you.
Good to see you.
Everybody coming to the stage. Okay. Time to take the mic in your own hands. Thank you so much. Right there are the cue cards for time. I'm just gonna enjoy listening to what you're doing and let you guys pay attention to that. In 2 minutes, tell us why you'd like to be governor. You've served the state in so many different capacities. Why do you want to be governor?
First of all, thank you for having this. This is a great crowd.
Yes,
Ralph Norman running for governor. I'm from Rock Hill, South Carolina. I born and raised in South Carolina. 4 children. My wife is here with me now, married 51 years, 17 grandchildren. We can start another party. have not been in the political arena all my life. I spent 30 years in the real estate business, family real estate business, and I made money, I've lost money. And I've seen what regulations do to small businesses and large businesses. And how do I know that? I've been through it. I know it. I decided after our children were grown, I decided to give back and spent a short time in the state legislature and then went to Congress. Congress has been the best thing I've done in a long time. How do you know what my record is? On your table, this is my card. This is my voting card. I got a 96% with TSA. I have for a tax, talking about cutting taxes, I've been a taxpayer hero for 8 years every time I've been in Congress. And these aren't just words that I'm telling you. These are things that I believe in because I've been there and I've done it. What am I going to do day one? One, I'm going to do we're going to clean up Columbia. I used to think Washington was the most corrupt place. Columbia is corrupt. It just is. I will put forth an extensive audit of every agency, and I will show it to each one of you on my website. For those who have been there way too long, term limits, which I put up every year, we're going to put up a term limit bill. We're going to fix our roads and bridges. It's been a stepchild here in South Carolina. And there's no reason why our roads and bridges ought to be in the condition that they are. We lead the nation in fatalities. Selection of judges. Why should trial lawyers pick our judges? They appear before judges. It's like telling Clemson and Carolina, we're going to let you pick your referees. That's not going to happen. We're going to put up a bill that I think we, the people, ought to elect our judges. And they ought to be accountable to we the people. We're going to cut your taxes, but every politician around election time says this. I'm going to show you what we're going to cut. What I've learned in Congress, every dollar has got an advocate for it. And so I look forward to taking my business experience. I'm the only one in this race that started a business in South Carolina, run it successfully, and have made money and lost money, which, by the way, ought to be a prerequisite before anybody can run for office. I look forward to the questions.
Well, your first question. You're known in Congress as a fiscal hardliner. What is one area of state government where you believe South Carolina is overspending, and what would you cut or reform?
You know, if you look at the budget in South Carolina for 10 years, we've grown government 100%. We have got a supermajority of Republicans in name only. They campaign just to get elected, many of them, and then when they get there, they change. 10 years ago, the expenditures was $23 billion. Today, it's over $42 billion. Folks with a conservative, those who are claiming to be conservative have just switched. We're going to call them out on it. Now, this is what separates me from really every other candidate in this race. I will try to work with the legislature, but bottom line, we're going to get our infrastructure fixed. We're going to get our education fixed. The dollar ought to follow the child. And we're going to get the judicial, the way we select judges. We're only one of 2 states. Now, if they go along, fine. If they don't go along, we're going to have a debate in every city, in every county, and I will tell you how they vote, not what they say. They're all nice people, just like everybody running. We just have a difference of opinion on how to bring this state forward. And Scout Motors should have never been voted on in the first place. That will not be a mistake Ralph Norman makes. And to give them the extra money is an insult to the people in this state.
Congress is often criticized for dysfunction. What lessons from Washington, D.C. will you bring to Columbia, and what will you leave behind?
Term limits would be the best thing that's happened to this country. Washington is pretty much irredeemable. You have crony capitalism putting people in office to get your tax money. In South Carolina, it's a lot of the same. And you just got to be bold in calling people out. And I will do that. And it's in South Carolina, I fear, if you want to know my biggest fear, if we have feckless leadership for the next 8 years, and we're electing a CEO for 8 years, it's not 4 with the power of incumbency. We will be just like a state that under conservative leadership had the same natural resources, had the same mountains, had the same great cities and natural resources. Look at California today. It's a cesspool of crime and drugs. I ain't letting South Carolina get like that.
As governor, you would need to work closely with legislators. How would your business experience translate into effective state leadership?
Well, the legislators are going to have to work with we the people. I'll get along fine with them as long as we make these changes. You don't spend your way into oblivion. And South Carolina is at the cusp of going either way. You've got to drive a hard bargain with these companies that want to come in here. I'm all for growth. I've been in business for 30 years. I know how to say yes and I know how to say no. They're not going to be able to tell Ralph Norman, we're going to create jobs. This is your legacy. No. What return on investment are they going to return to South Carolina? If I want to just let everybody and anybody in, that's not the way a Norman administration is going to go. I'll have quality growth that'll stand the test of time.
South Carolina continues to rely heavily on federal funding. How would you reduce that reliance without harming essential services?
Federal funding, we're $38 trillion in debt. When you add Social Security, Highway Trust Fund, Medicaid, Medicare, this country is on a path that's not sustainable. The head of Heritage Foundation made a comment that scared me to death, is when he said, the only way we're going to keep these politicians from spinning us into oblivion, both Democrat and Republican, is when we hit a brick wall and no one buys the bonds. Look, federal funding, I will look at anything. My experience in Washington, I know where the strings in many cases that come with federal funding, you don't want them. Greenville wouldn't want them because it's too strict, particularly under the Biden administration. I'll look at it and we'll gauge it. I'm for good growth, but it's going to have to be based on, the company succeeding and the company on its own doing what they can do for South Carolina. And we can pick, we've got everybody wanting to come in here, folks. We're the #1 suitcase suitcase state in the country.
And finally, sir, what is one conservative principle that you believe should not be compromised at the state level, even if it costs political support?
I don't make political decisions, to be honest with you. We've got to rein in our spending. We've got to not major in the minor. We have got to spend money where it makes sense for South Carolina. And I will tell you, I will be real picky with who comes into this state. And I will be I will take it to each one of you. Any legislature those members who buck us on keeping our infrastructure pristine, we're going to have a problem. The same thing if they buck on not wanting to change the way the judicial system is in this state, which is archaic and not fair for we the people. We're going to have a discussion. And again, I will do it. They say governor is weak. You've got the veto. You've got the line item spending. And the most important thing, I'll go to each one of you. If I have a problem with either of these things, I'll come to you and I'll say, look, here's who is in committee stopping what we're trying to do for the state. I'm going to ask you to deal with them. And if not, we'll have a discussion. And it'll be but I'll use those 3 tools as governor because I think that makes sense.
Okay, that concludes the questions for Representative Ralph Norman. Can we invite you now for 2 minutes to just tell this room why you feel like you should be the next governor of South Carolina?
Here's why I ought to be governor. I'm the only one that's got a track record. If you want to see what Ralph Norman is, what he's going to do when he comes back to South Carolina, we're going to win this race. Look at this. Secondly, the importance on June 9th, you're picking a CEO, a leader for the next 8 years. Now, what if you had to pick a doctor or a surgeon to do surgery on you and you're locked in for 8 years. You would want somebody that's not just talking about it. What have they done with it while the time that they had to? That's what separates me from the opponents, to be honest with you. And we're going to put South Carolina first. We're going to fight for this state, and it's going to be the best state in the country. It'll be Ronald Reagan's shining city on the hill. We're going to make South Carolina shining city on the hill. We're going to cut the government, cut the bureaucracy. We're going to focus on the things that made this state great and made this country great. I cannot wait to get into office, and my czar for roads will be the lieutenant governor. No longer will the lieutenant governor be just a perfunctory job. Anybody that gets a paycheck from the federal government is going to work. And if we can recruit a coach to win football games, we're going to recruit good people. I'll put business people on every board and commission, not getting people that maybe gave me the most money. It's going to be business people who know what they're doing, who have got the courage to make the call to get this state back on the financial track. I'll end with this. If you think everything's rosy in this state, have you looked at your electric bill? Have you looked at your insurance premium? If you don't think frivolous lawsuits are a problem, the cost of living in this state is going to come down under Ralph Norman, and we've got the courage to make the right calls. Look, I've learned it in the business arena, and I will use my experiences to help this state. Thank each and every one of you. I've got to catch a plane. They cancel votes today, but the planes are the problem. So I will stay as long as I can, then I've got to leave. God bless each and every one of you.
Come out, Christo.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it.
Good to see your beautiful bride.
Yeah.
Safe travels. We have been paying attention to the weather, so we understand that plain thing. Let me invite to the stage now South Carolina Attorney General Alan Wilson. Well, thank you. And Nancy Mace was invited today. Did you make a comment about that, Racine? Okay, great. So we just want to make sure that everybody knows that all of the Republican candidates were invited today. Alan Wilson, thank you so much for being with us. For 2 minutes, tell everybody here why you think you'd make the best governor.
Thank you, Jane, and thank you to the Upstate Republican women, and thank you to the other folks running for governor. We're not enemies, we're competitors. There's a big difference, and we need to remember that through this primary season. First off, thank you. Folks, I was elected in 2010, took office in 2011, and since that time, I have brought hundreds of cases against the Biden-Obama administrations. I've led major reforms for human trafficking, internet safety for children, DUIs, domestic violence. I've led major reforms as your Attorney General. In addition to that, I have fought for almost every single constitutional right that we hold precious and dear in the courts of South Carolina, as well as our federal courts, all the way to the United States Supreme Court. When I was a young prosecutor, there was a case that was a bridge to me getting to this point. And it was a case in which I represented or prosecuted a man who had sexually abused his granddaughter. This man was a retired police officer. And at the end of that trial, he was sent away for 18 years. And I remember talking to this young woman after the trial, and it was at that moment, based on what she had told me he had done to her, that I realized that I could be a voice for people who had no voice. She had no voice for the entirety of her adolescence. I could be a bridge from victimhood to survivorship. I could be a champion for giving people power who had no power. And that is what ultimately compelled me to run for Attorney General. And it was during that time as Attorney General that I was able to accomplish the things that I just talked about a moment ago. I don't have enough time today to go over my resume, but I have been out there in the trenches, both on the battlefields of Iraq as a 30-year combat veteran, as well as your Attorney General for the last 15 years, laying it all on the line. It's not only enough to say and believe the right things. You must also have the courage to do the right things. I believe I have done that, and I have demonstrated that time and time again, not just laying my life on the line, but laying my livelihood on the line, laying my political reputation on the line, being attacked incessantly. So when you're looking for the next governor of South Carolina, you're looking for a leader. You can label it a private sector leader, a public sector leader, but you're looking for someone who is willing to fight for you, someone who has demonstrated time and time again that they have the courage to accomplish the very things that we all say and that we want to do and believe, but actually has the ability to get it done.
Alan Wilson. Touching on some of that, as Attorney General, you've sued the federal government numerous times. What is one federal policy that you would not challenge as governor, even if it's unpopular with your party, and why?
That's a great question. So first off, I've sued the federal government several hundred times, so that's numerous. I do want to qualify that, and we can talk about that in another question. But I would say off the top of my head, I think one policy that I would probably, you say, keep in place at the federal level.
Yes, what would you not challenge as governor, even if it's unpopular with your party?
So we're seeing states all around the country have this patchwork of laws dealing with the legalization of marijuana. At the federal level, it is against the law. I mean, marijuana is a Schedule I narcotic, where cocaine is only a Schedule II. At the federal level, it's supposed to be illegal in every state. I would maintain a federal regulation on marijuana, but actually enforce it. We're not actually enforcing it because I'm talking to law enforcement in other states who are saying, for God's sake, do not follow us over this cliff. There is a correlation between all of the crime, all of the entitlement issues, all the mental health issues, and the fact that we are opening the gateways to some of these drugs that people think are just green leafy vegetables. The federal government is not enforcing it. So if the federal government would actually enforce it, then that's something that I would want to keep in place at the national level. Generally, I like local control, but I would be okay with studying it and scheduling it as a Schedule II drug, but not letting each state do their patchwork of regulations.
Yeah, and to be clear, are you talking about medical marijuana, or are you talking about recreational marijuana?
I'm talking about marijuana, period. Whether, first off, it's against the laws. I mean, the federal government's just not enforcing it in all this patchwork of states right now.
South Carolina ranks high in domestic violence and in violent crime rates. What is one concrete policy change that you would implement as governor that goes beyond enforcement and actually reduces crime long term?
So for 15 years, I've worked on this issue, whether it was DUIs, CDVs, whether it was violent crimes, bond reform, even advocating for judicial selection reform, which I've been doing for 15 years. There's a reason why nearly 80% of all of the elected Republican sheriffs in the state of South Carolina, including our own wonderful sheriff here in Greenville County, Hobart Lewis, have endorsed one candidate for governor, yours truly. I've received that because I have worked with law enforcement to implement issues involving judicial selection reform, bond reform, domestic violence, creating the state human trafficking task force, quadrupling the size of the Internet Crimes Against Children task force, working with solicitors and law enforcement at the front lines to keep people safe. I would continue that by I agree, I think every candidate up for running for governor supports judicial selection reform. I believe holding judges accountable who refuse to hold violent criminals accountable is the #1 thing we can do. But I've already been doing it. In fact, in December, SLED just issued a report that South Carolina is at a 30-year low in violent crime. Now, are we where I want us to be? Of course not. I like it to be 0. But we have been trending in the right ways, and that is because of the collaborative working relationships that I have with prosecutors, sheriffs, police chiefs, and other law enforcement agencies. We've been up here in the Upstate prosecuting hundreds, if not thousands, of criminal defendants, working with Mexican drug cartels, human traffickers, drug traffickers on the street corners. We've been cleaning up here, South Carolina, but I think judicial reform is one area that I would start, and obviously having mandatory minimums for online sex predators, especially those repeat offenders. Put them under the jail, not in the jail.
Some critics say that attorneys general can be reactive rather than executive leaders. How has your tenure prepared you to manage a $13+ billion state government and go beyond litigation?
Well, first off, attorneys general aren't reactive, they're proactive. Yes, they also react to bad things when things happen, but they have to be proactive. I mean, I brought hundreds of lawsuits or legal actions against the federal government under Biden and Obama, plus hundreds, that includes support of President Trump in his first administration, as well as the 4 years he was out, and of course defending the president now. But not just being attorney general, you forget that I'm a senior executive leader in the United States Army. I've served a combat tour. I've actually led soldiers in combat. I've been in hostile conditions. I've had to make decisions in life and death situations. As the CEO of the state, as the chief leader of the state, you want people who can make tough political decisions, but Have you ever met anyone who's made tough decisions in a theater of combat when lives were on the line? I have. I think that's what kind of sets me apart. So I have been proactive, not just as a military leader, but as a senior executive leader in a very complex bureaucratic agency. I have 350 employees managing nearly 8,000 cases on a daily basis. We've brought in hundreds of millions, actually billions of dollars in recovery for the state of South Carolina since I've been Attorney General. That wasn't a function of me reacting to things. That was a function of me being proactive on things. The Human Trafficking Task Force, that wasn't reactive. That was seeing an issue and then proactively going out there and fighting for it. So as your governor, I will continue to be proactive on the issues that are important to you, not just the law enforcement issues, but issues that affect businesses, issues that affect energy, infrastructure, public safety, education across the board. We will be proactive, just like I have been as your Attorney General.
If the legislature sends you a bill and your governor you personally disagree with, but that reflects the will of the voters, how would you decide whether to sign it or veto it?
So yes, first off, I am a trustee of the office of governor or a trustee of the office of attorney general like I currently am. It is your office. We work for you. But with that being said, I'm running right now. I'm putting my political and philosophical views in how I would govern. My leadership style is on display for every one of my prospective employers in this room right now. So I think that would be a rare occurrence that when I would be disparate from the vast majority of South Carolina voters. However, there are times when you're in a leadership position that you have to make a decision that might not be politically palatable, but it might be the right thing to do legally, constitutionally, or morally. I do that every day, ladies and gentlemen. On every single pleading that we have, there's South Carolina versus someone or someone versus South Carolina. If I indict a politician, people say I'm on a witch hunt. If I don't indict a politician, then people say I'm sweeping under the rug. If I sue on something, they say I'm doing it for politics. If I don't sue on something, they're saying I'm doing it for politics. No matter what I do as Attorney General, I get criticized by people. So I've just made a decision when I became Attorney General, I'm gonna do the right thing, right? And then I'll figure out how to message it after I do it. But the decision to do the right thing isn't gonna be on what is politically popular. It is gonna be what is constitutional, what is right, and what is moral and ethical. And that is why I get attacked so much for my beliefs, because I'm always out there leading from the front, being responsible for all the actions I've taken as your Attorney General.
And final question. What is one decision that you have made as Attorney General that cost you politically, but that you would make again?
Okay, so I would say in 2020, I supported President Trump's election integrity lawsuit against the state of Pennsylvania because they were violating the U.S. Constitution. I had about 34 complaints filed against me in January of 2021, in the very first month of the Biden administration. And for 4 years, at the cost of thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, I had to defend my law license because I brought a lawsuit that was, that people didn't like. So again, demonstration of courage, the ability to do the right thing without political consequences. It cost me personally, it cost me politically, but I did it. People up here say they were with the president on day one. In January of 2023, I wasn't standing at the State House. I was prepping for the trial of the century in the Alex Murdaugh case. But I was there on the floor of the convention in Cleveland, Ohio in 2016, when we nominated the president, President Trump, to be our nominee. I was on the floor when it happened, supporting the president back then. I've supported President Trump every step of the way, whether it was the $355 million verdict against him, whether it was keeping him off the ballot, whether it was the first impeachment when I led a letter to the U.S. Senate, whether it was defending him in criminal court. I have put it out there every single time without concern for political consequence.
South Carolina.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for this opportunity in this room. You're one of three kinds of people. There are people in here who are with me, people who are on the fence, people who are with another candidate. If you're with me, thank you. If you're on the fence, what I'm asking you for is the opportunity to earn your trust, to earn your vote, to earn your support. And if you're with another candidate, that's fine. We can't destroy each other in a primary. It's getting like that. I'm seeing hostility on social media. If you're with the other team, I understand and I respect you. What I would ask of you is, let me be your number two. If you're supporting another candidate right now, give me the opportunity to be your number two. And if I'm in the runoff against someone who you didn't support in the primary, then give me the opportunity to earn your vote. As a combat veteran of 30 years, as someone who's laid it all on the line, as someone who's been at the national level and defended the values that we have here in South Carolina, I'm asking you to trust me to do things like eliminate our income tax, to reform our property taxes, reform our education system, maintain parental rights at all costs. That is a sacrosanct relationship. Making sure education dollars follow the child, not the educrat. Infrastructure reform. These are public safety reform, to continue to support law enforcement at all levels and to continue to work with them. As your governor, we will not be transitional. We will be transformational. We're not going to play not to lose. We're going to play to win. We're going to lean in. We're going to be aggressive. We're going to get it done. And you're going to see things you have never seen before, because there's a new generation of leadership with Alan Wilson and Mike Rickenbaugh, someone that if you haven't met yet, you're going to love him. He's the next big thing coming down the pipeline. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to earn your trust and your support. Thank you. God bless you all. And I look forward to seeing you in every corner of South Carolina.
State Attorney General Alan Wilson.